The rain came down in sheets that night, turning the forest floor into a mirror of mud and fallen leaves. I remember the cold, how it seeped through my thin jacket, how my fingers trembled as I clutched the supply bag they'd given me for the hunting expedition. Not that anyone expected me to actually hunt. I was there because the pack needed numbers, bodies to fill the ranks during the monthly run. A formality, a placeholder. My blonde hair hung in wet strands across my face as I trudged behind the others, their powerful forms moving with an ease I'd never possess, wolves born into strength, into belonging. And then there was me, human, breakable, tolerated only because my mother had been a healer before the fever took her. They kept me around the way you might keep an old tool, useful occasionally, but never precious. "Keep up, Sarah," one of them called back, not bothering to look. His voice carried that particular tone I'd grown accustomed to, not quite contempt, but close enough. Indifference with edges. I quickened my pace, boots squelching in the mud. The forest seemed darker than usual tonight, the towering pines blocking out even the weak moonlight struggling through the storm clouds. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled like a warning. My mother used to tell me stories before she died, not the sweet kind other children got. No fairy tales or happy endings. She told me about survival, about how the smallest creatures in the forest often lived longest because they knew when to be still, when to run, when to bare their teeth despite having nothing to fight with. "Courage isn't the absence of fear," she'd whispered during one of her final nights, her hand hot with fever in mine. "It's choosing compassion when fear tells you to close your heart." I hadn't understood then. I was only 12, and all I wanted was for her to stop talking about death and get better. But now, at 23, shivering in a forest full of creatures who could tear me apart without effort, I understood. Every day I chose to stay, to help, to matter. That was my small rebellion against the fear that whispered I should run and never look back. A howl split the night, not the communal call of the pack, but something else, something wrong. The wolves ahead of me froze as one, their heads snapping toward the sound. Even in human form, their senses were sharper than mine. I saw the shift in their postures, the casual arrogance replaced by alert tension. "That's from the western border," someone said. A woman named Esla, one of the few who'd ever spoken to me without that edge of dismissal, near the Alpha King's private grounds. My stomach dropped. The Alpha King rarely joined these expeditions. He was always somewhere else, managing territory disputes, meeting with other packs, carrying the weight of leadership like a crown made of thorns. I'd seen him only a handful of times, always at a distance. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes that seemed to look through you rather than at you, eyes that had seen too much, held too much. They said he'd lost his mate 5 years ago, that he'd never recovered, that the only softness left in him was reserved for his son, a boy of 4 who was being raised within the protected heart of Packlands. Another howl, this one closer, and underneath it, a sound that made my blood freeze. A child's scream. The pack erupted into motion, bodies shifting mid-stride, clothes tearing as fur and muscle took their place. Within seconds, wolves the size of horses were tearing through the underbrush toward the sound, leaving me alone in the sudden silence. I should have stayed put, should have waited like the fragile human I was. Instead, I ran. My legs burned as I crashed through branches, my lungs screaming for air in the cold rain. I had no speed, no strength, no way to help, but that child's scream had carved itself into my chest, and I couldn't stop moving. I burst into a clearing just as lightning split the sky. The scene before me was chaos. 3 wolves, pack members, fighting against something massive and wrong. At first I thought it was a bear, but no bear moved like that. Its eyes glowed red in the lightning flash, and foam dripped from its jaws, rabid, infected. The kind of creature that didn't stop until it was dead. And there, pressed against a fallen log, was the child. He couldn't have been more than 4, his small face streaked with tears and mud. His eyes, the same piercing gray as the Alpha King's, were wide with terror. He was trying to crawl backward, but his leg was twisted at an angle that made me feel sick. The infected beast lunged toward him, breaking past the wolves with terrifying speed. I moved without thinking. My body crashed into the child just as claws raked the air where he'd been. I felt the impact, the boy's small form solid against mine as we rolled. I positioned myself over him, my back to the creature, my arms wrapping around his trembling body. "It's okay," I heard myself whisper, though nothing was okay. "I've got you." The first arrow hit my shoulder like a bolt of lightning. I'd never been shot before. The pain was indescribable, a white-hot explosion that radiated down my arm and into my spine. I gasped, my vision blurring. But I didn't move. Couldn't move. The child was under me, and moving meant exposing him. Through the haze of pain, I understood. The pack warriors were firing arrows tipped with silver and wolfsbane, the only thing that could bring down an infected creature quickly. But in the chaos, in the rain and darkness, they couldn't get a clear shot around me. The second arrow struck my lower back. I bit down on my lip hard enough to taste blood, stifling the scream that wanted to tear free. The child beneath me was crying, his small hands clutching my jacket. "Don't move," I managed to whisper. "Stay still, sweetheart." The third arrow pierced my side. The world tilted. I could feel wetness spreading beneath my clothes. Not just rain now. My arms felt weak, but I locked them around the boy, making my body a shield. I could hear the snarling getting closer, feel the vibration of massive paws hitting the earth near my head. Courage isn't the absence of fear. The fourth arrow took me in my upper thigh. Darkness crept in at the edges of my vision. I could hear voices now, shouting, orders being barked in tones of command. The Alpha King's voice, I realized distantly. He was here. He was. The weight above me disappeared. Through dimming eyes, I saw the massive black wolf, larger than any I'd ever seen, tear into the infected creature with savage precision. It was over in seconds, and then hands were on me, gentle hands, trying to turn me over. "No," I slurred, still clutching the child. Is he hurt?" The Alpha King's voice, but different now, rough with something I couldn't name. "Let him go. Let me see you." "The boy," I insisted, even as my grip weakened. "Please." "He's safe. You saved him. Now let me." His voice cracked. Actually cracked. My arms finally gave out. I felt the child being lifted away, heard him crying for me. This stranger who'd covered him with her breakable body. Someone was applying pressure to my wounds, but I barely felt it through the encroaching cold. I looked up and found eyes staring down at me. The Alpha King's eyes, no longer distant or hard. They were wide with something like horror, like disbelief. "Why?" he asked, and his voice was almost gentle. "Why would you do that?" I tried to smile, though I'm not sure my face obeyed. "He's just a child." The last thing I saw before darkness took me was a single tear sliding down the face of the most powerful wolf in 3 territories. A man who hadn't cried, they said, since the day his mate died. And the last thing I felt was his hand, warm and trembling, cradling my face as if I were something precious. As if I mattered. I woke to whiteness, not the peaceful kind, the sterile, antiseptic white of the pack's medical wing. Every breath I took sent fire racing through my torso, and when I tried to move, my body screamed in protest. I managed a small groan before hands pressed gently against my shoulders. "Don't move." A woman's voice, firm but kind. "You've been healing for 3 days, but you're nowhere near ready to get up." 3 days. My eyes focused slowly on the face above me. Dr. Chen, the pack's head physician. She was older, maybe 50, with silver threading through her black hair and eyes that had seen too many injuries to be shocked by much. But when she looked at me, there was something different in her expression. Something like respect. "The arrows?" I managed to croak out, my throat raw. "Removed. You're lucky, if you can call it that. None of them hit anything vital, though one came close to your kidney." She adjusted an IV bag hanging beside my bed. "You've got werewolf blood in you now. We had to give you transfusions to replace what you lost. It won't change you, but it'll help you heal faster than normal." I processed this slowly. Werewolf blood. In me. The thought should have terrified me, but I felt oddly detached, floating on whatever pain medication they'd given me. "The boy," I whispered. "Is he?" "Prince Finn is perfectly fine. Not a scratch on him." Dr. Chen's expression softened. "Thanks to you." Prince Finn. I'd known the Alpha King had a son. but hearing his name made him real in a way he hadn't been before. A child with a name, with gray eyes full of tears, with small hands that had clutched my jacket like a lifeline. The door to my room opened, and I expected another nurse, or perhaps Isla coming to check on me. Instead, 6 wolves filed in, all wearing expressions that made my drugged mind struggle to comprehend what I was seeing. They knelt. Every one of them, including pack warriors twice my age, wolves who'd barely acknowledged my existence for years, dropped to one knee beside my bed. "We owe you a debt," one of them said. A scarred man named Garrett, who'd once told me to stay out of the way during a training session. His voice was thick with emotion. "You protected our prince when we failed. You took arrows meant for an infected beast and you didn't let go." I didn't know what to say. My mind felt sluggish, overwhelmed. He was scared. "You're Pack now," said another woman, younger with kind eyes. "Truly Pack, not just tolerated, honored. What you did, there aren't words." They stayed kneeling until I managed to nod, accepting something I didn't fully understand. Then they filed out one by one, each touching their hand to their heart as they passed my bed. A gesture of deep respect I'd only ever seen given to the Alpha King himself. When they left, I was alone with Dr. Chen again. "You've caused quite a stir," she said with a slight smile. "The Alpha King has been here every night. Sits in that chair by the window from midnight until dawn, just watching you breathe." She gestured to a leather armchair I hadn't noticed. "He leaves before the morning staff arrives, but I work late. I've seen him." My heart did something complicated in my chest. The Alpha King, here, watching me. "Why?" I asked. Dr. Chen's smile turned sad. "His son is everything to him. After he lost Queen Helena, Finn became his entire world. And you threw yourself between that child and death without hesitation." She paused, checking my bandages. "You gave him something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope that there's still genuine goodness in the world." I wanted to argue that I wasn't special, that anyone would have done the same. But we both knew that wasn't true. In that clearing, with that child screaming and that beast charging, I'd been the only one close enough, fragile enough to be hit by friendly fire, and still I'd chosen to be the shield. "Sleep now," Dr. Chen said. "You need your strength. Something tells me your life is about to get very complicated." She was right. I drifted in and out of consciousness for another 2 days. Each time I woke, there were gifts beside my bed, fresh flowers that smelled like the forest. Books I'd mentioned wanting to read years ago in passing, a soft blanket woven in blues and silvers, the colors of the royal house, and once, when I surfaced briefly in the deepest part of night, I saw him. The Alpha King sat in the chair by the window, his dark hair disheveled, his powerful frame somehow diminished by exhaustion. He was watching me with an intensity that should have frightened me. Instead, I felt seen. Truly seen. Maybe for the first time in my life. Our eyes met in the darkness. "You should be sleeping," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He didn't startle. Just leaned forward slowly, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "So should you." "I'm the one full of holes." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "And I'm the one who can't stop seeing you covered in blood, still holding my son, still asking if he was hurt before you'd even let yourself be moved." Silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable but heavy with things unsaid. "What's your name?" he asked finally. "Your real name. I've heard them call you Sarah, but it doesn't fit you." "Seraphina," I admitted. "My mother named me after angels. She had a strange sense of humor. Angels are warriors," he said quietly. "Fierce protectors." Maybe she knew something. My throat tightened with emotion. "I'm not." "You took 4 arrows." His voice went rough. "You didn't scream. You didn't let go. You asked about my son before yourself." He stood, moving closer to my bed with a wolf's fluid grace. "You're the definition of a warrior, Seraphina. Don't diminish what you did." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers brushed a strand of blonde hair back from my face with heartbreaking gentleness. "My son wants to meet you," he said. "When you're stronger. He's been asking every day, the lady with the yellow hair who kept him safe. He has nightmares, but when he's scared, he remembers your voice telling him it would be okay." Tears pricked my eyes. I'd like that. And He paused, seeming to struggle with words. I want to know you. Who you are beyond the ghost who's haunted the edges of this pack for years. I want to understand how someone with every reason to run toward safety instead ran toward danger. My mother taught me, I whispered, about choosing compassion over fear. Something shifted in his expression. Pain and recognition, and something almost like wonder. She must have been remarkable. She was. He stayed until I fell asleep again, his presence a warm anchor in the darkness. When I finally woke fully, late afternoon sun streaming through the windows, I found I could sit up without feeling like I was being torn apart. My wounds had become dull aches, rather than screaming agony. Doctor. Chen declared it a miracle, though she attributed it to the werewolf blood and my own stubborn will to heal. You have a visitor, she said, helping me into a sitting position propped by pillows. He's been very patient, but I think if I make him wait another day, the Alpha King might have my head. Before I could ask who she meant, the door opened. The boy who entered was small, solemn, and heartbreakingly beautiful. Dark hair like his father's, but those gray eyes were all his own, ancient and young at the same time. He clutched a stuffed wolf to his chest and moved with the careful uncertainty of a child who'd recently learned that the world could be dangerous. Prince Finn. Hello, I said softly, the way my mother had taught me to speak to frightened creatures. I'm Seraphina. He studied me for a long moment, then, in a voice barely above a whisper, You're the angel. My heart cracked open. Just a person, sweetheart. Daddy says angels are warriors. He took a tentative step closer. He says you saved me even though it hurt. You were scared. I didn't want you to be scared alone. Another step. Does it still hurt? A little, but I'm getting better. He reached my bedside and with the sudden decisiveness of children, climbed carefully onto the bed beside me. I held my breath, afraid to move and disturb him. He settled against my uninjured side and looked up at me with those devastating eyes. I dream about the monster, he said quietly. But then I remember you. You said you had me. I did have you. And I always will, if you need me. He was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, will you stay? Daddy says you can stay in the big house with us. You can have your own room and everything, and I can show you my trucks, the big house, the Alpha King's personal residence. The heart of pack territory where only the most trusted, most essential wolves lived. I didn't know how to answer. My small cabin on the outskirts, my invisible existence, that had been my life for over a decade. This child was offering me something I'd never dared dream of, belonging. Home. The door opened again, and the Alpha King entered. His eyes went immediately to his son curled against me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. Tenderness. Relief. And when his gaze met mine, something else entirely. Finn, he said gently. You're supposed to let Seraphina rest. But I'm being careful, see? Finn gestured at how still he was sitting. The Alpha King moved closer, and I saw the dark circles under his eyes, the strain around his mouth. This man who led hundreds, who commanded respect and fear, looked exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. I see, he said, and his voice had gone soft. You're being very good, his eyes lifted to mine. Both of you. Your son is wonderful, I said honestly. He is. Something flickered across his face. He's also decided that you're going to live with us. I hope that's not too presumptuous. I tried to explain that you might prefer your own space, but please, Finn interrupted, grabbing my hand with his small one. Please stay, Seraphina. Two pairs of gray eyes looked at me, one young and hopeful, one older and guarded, but carrying its own desperate hope. And I realized something that my mother would have understood. Sometimes courage isn't charging toward danger. Sometimes it's accepting love when loneliness has been your armor for so long. Okay, I whispered. I'll stay. Finn's face split into a brilliant smile. The Alpha King's eyes closed briefly, and when they opened again, they were suspiciously bright. Good, he said roughly. That's good. And for the first time since my mother died, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. The Alpha King's residence was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd pictured something cold and imposing. Marble halls and stern portraits. A monument to power rather than a home. Instead, when Garrett and Dr. Chen helped me through the front door 2 weeks after the attack, I found myself in a space that was surprisingly warm. Hardwood floors covered in soft rugs. Windows that let in floods of natural light. Toys scattered in corners. Evidence of a child who was loved and allowed to simply be a child. "Your room is upstairs," the Alpha King said, appearing from what looked like a study. He'd shed the formal bearing I'd seen at pack gatherings, dressed simply in dark jeans and a gray Henley that made him look younger, more approachable. Though his eyes still carried that weight, that shadows and sorrow depth. "Second door on the left. I had them set it up based on, well, things I remembered you mentioning over the years." I stared at him. "You remember things I mentioned?" A faint color touched his cheeks. Something I never thought I'd see on the face of an Alpha King. "I pay attention to my pack, even the ones who think they're invisible." "Especially the invisible ones," his tone seemed to say. Garrett excused himself with a knowing smile. "Doctor." Chen squeezed my hand once before leaving, whispering, "Call if you need anything, and take it slow. Your body is still healing." Then it was just the two of us in the entryway. Afternoon light slanting through tall windows. And I suddenly felt very aware of how I must look. Still pale, still moving carefully, wearing borrowed clothes because my own had been destroyed. "Let me show you," he said quietly, offering his arm. I took it, feeling the solid warmth of him, the barely leashed strength. We climbed the stairs slowly, accommodating my healing injuries. At the top, a hallway stretched in both directions. He guided me left, past what I assumed was his room, past Finn's. I could hear the boy inside, talking to himself as he played. He opened the second door, and I forgot to breathe. The room was beautiful, a large bed with a cream-colored duvet. A reading nook by the window with cushions in soft blues. Bookshelves already filled with titles I'd longed to read. And on the dresser, a small vase holding wildflowers, the kind that grew in the meadow where my mother used to take me. "How did you—" I couldn't finish the question. "Isla helped," he admitted. "She said you used to sit in the meadow on your days off, always with a book. And I remembered you looking at the library cart when it came through, always choosing the same kinds of stories." He paused. "If it's too much, if I overstepped, it's perfect," I whispered. "I've never had anything this perfect." The silence that followed was comfortable, tinged with something I couldn't quite name. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching me take in the space with an expression that made my chest tight. "There's something else," he said finally. "Downstairs, when you're ready." Curiosity pulled me to follow him back down. He led me to a formal sitting room I hadn't noticed before, and there, standing in a nervous cluster, were members of the Pack Council, 5 older wolves, including Isla, who'd always been kind to me. They all stood when I entered, which felt profoundly wrong. These were Pack elders, and I was nobody. "Serafina," Isla said warmly, stepping forward. "We wanted to speak with you officially, if you're feeling strong enough." I glanced at the Alpha King. He gave me a small nod of encouragement. "Of course," I managed. The eldest council member, a man named Thomas with silver hair and kind eyes, cleared his throat. "What you did for Prince Finn, there are no words adequate to express our gratitude. You gave everything to protect our future, and we wish to honor that." "I don't need to be honored," I said quickly. "I just did what no one else did," Isla interrupted gently. "Serafina, in that moment, you were the only one close enough, brave enough, selfless enough to act. 4 arrows. You took 4 arrows and never let go." Thomas continued. "The Pack Council would like to formally recognize you as Pack Guardian. It's a title that hasn't been given in 50 years. The last was to a wolf who saved an entire settlement from fire. You would have a voice in council meetings, protection under Pack law, and the respect due to someone who's proven their worth beyond question." I felt dizzy. Pack Guardian. A voice in council. These people who'd tolerated me for years were offering me a place among their most honored. "I'm human," I said weakly. "Your pack," the Alpha King said, his voice carrying absolute authority. "Species doesn't determine worth. Actions do. And your actions have proven you belong here more than wolves who were born into it." I looked at each face in turn. They were sincere. No mockery, no hidden agenda. Just genuine gratitude and respect. I accept, I heard myself say. And I'm honored. Truly. The formal tension broke. Isla hugged me carefully, mindful of my injuries. The others smiled, nodding approval. And when they filed out, the Alpha King remained. That wasn't too overwhelming, I hope. He said, I'm still processing the room. This might take me a week. A genuine smile crossed his face. The first real one I'd seen. And it transformed him completely. The harsh lines softened, the shadows lifted, and for a moment I glimpsed the man he might have been before grief carved itself into his bones. Daddy! Finn's voice echoed from upstairs. Is Seraphina here yet? Yes! The Alpha King called back. Come down, but walk. No running on the stairs. Small feet thundered above us, then slowed to careful steps. Finn appeared, clutching his stuffed wolf, face bright with excitement. You're really staying? He asked, launching himself at me. I caught him gently, my side protesting but my heart expanding. I'm really staying. Forever? I met the Alpha King's eyes over his son's head. Something passed between us, a question, a hope, a possibility neither of us was ready to name. For as long as you'll have me, I said. That night, I lay in my perfect room, in my perfect bed, and cried. Not from pain, but from the overwhelming strangeness of being wanted, of mattering, of having a place that wasn't just tolerated, but chosen. The days that followed developed a rhythm. Mornings I'd wake to find coffee already made in the kitchen. The Alpha King was an early riser, often returning from patrol at dawn. We'd share quiet conversations while Finn slept, learning each other in careful increments. I discovered his name was River, that he'd been 25 when he became Alpha King after his father's sudden passing, that he loved his son with an intensity that was almost painful to witness, that he blamed himself for not being there the night of the attack, even though he'd been managing a territory dispute 3 hours away. He learned that I'd taught myself to read from my mother's medical texts, that I was afraid of deep water, but loved thunderstorms, that I'd once wanted to be a teacher before circumstances made survival the only goal that mattered. Finn became my constant companion. He'd drag me outside to see flowers, to play with his toy trucks in the dirt, to help him build elaborate forts from couch cushions. His nightmares lessened, though sometimes he'd wake crying and refuse to settle until I came to sit with him. My presence apparently more soothing than even his father's. He's never taken to anyone like this, River told me one evening. We were sitting on the back porch while Finn napped inside, the late spring air warm and fragrant with blooming things. Not since his mother. I treaded carefully. Isla told me what happened. I'm sorry. His jaw tightened. Helena was murdered by rogues when Finn was 6 months old. They wanted to weaken the pack, to throw us into chaos by killing the queen. And it worked. I was useless for months. If not for the council and wolves like Esla, everything would have fallen apart. But it didn't, I said quietly. You held it together. You raised your son. You kept the pack safe by becoming hard, cold, focused only on duty and protection. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw vulnerability in those gray eyes. I forgot how to be anything else. And then you. You reminded me that there's still softness worth protecting, still beauty and sacrifice, still people who choose love over fear. My breath caught. River. You don't have to say anything, he said quickly. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know what you've given me, given us. It's more than just saving Finn's life. You've given me hope that I can be more than just a king, that I can be a father who smiles, maybe even a man who feels again. I reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away. My hand covered his where it rested on the porch railing. His fingers turned, threading through mine, and the touch felt monumental. I feel it too, I whispered. Whatever this is, I feel it. We sat like that as the sun set, hands joined, not speaking, not needing to. But peace never lasts. 3 weeks after I moved into the residence, a messenger arrived from the Northern Pack. River's expression darkened as he read the letter, and I watched tension return to his shoulders, saw the king replace the man. There's a gathering, he said, joining me in the sitting room where I was reading. All the regional alphas twice a year. Politics, territory agreements, dispute resolutions. He paused. They're demanding I attend, and they want to meet you. Me? Word has spread about what you did. A human who took arrows for a werewolf prince. It's unprecedented. Some see you as a symbol of unity between species. Others... His expression went grim. Others see you as a weakness they can exploit. Fear fluttered in my chest, but I pushed it down. When do we leave? We? He looked at me sharply. Serafina, you don't have to. I'm pack guardian now, I said, lifting my chin. That means I stand with my pack, even when it's frightening. Something fierce and proud blazed in his eyes. Especially then. Finn took the news poorly. He clung to me, insisting he needed to come too, dissolving into tears when River explained he had to stay with Isla where it was safe. But what if the monster comes back? He sobbed against my shoulder. Then I'll protect you again, I promised, stroking his dark hair. But your daddy and I have to go be brave together this time. Can you be brave here with Isla? He sniffled. Will you come back? Always, I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. I promise. The night before we left, River found me on the porch again, staring at the stars. Having second thoughts? He asked, settling beside me. Terrified thoughts, I admitted. But that's different from second thoughts. He smiled at that. Then, slowly, he reached out and tucked a strand of my blonde hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering against my cheek. You've changed everything, he said softly. You know that, right? So have you. The space between us felt charged, electric. He leaned closer, his eyes searching mine for permission. I gave the barest nod, my heart hammering. His kiss was gentle, achingly, devastatingly gentle, like I was something precious that might break. His hand cupped my face, and I felt the tremor in his fingers, the restraint in every movement. When we pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. I haven't done that in 5 years, he whispered. Was it okay? I asked, suddenly uncertain. He laughed, the sound raw and real. Serafina, it was everything. And tomorrow, we'd face whatever threats awaited. But tonight, under the stars, we'd found something worth fighting for beyond duty and survival. We'd found each other. The gathering took place in neutral territory. A sprawling estate built into the mountains, ancient and imposing. As our convoy of vehicles wound up the narrow roads, I pressed my face to the window, watching pine forests give way to rocky cliffs and patches of late spring snow. River sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee, a casual touch that had become natural over the past few days. Since the kiss, something had shifted between us, not rushed or desperate, but steady, certain. Like we'd both been holding our breath for years, and finally remembered how to exhale. Tell me again who I need to worry about, I said, pulling my attention from the scenery. Connor of the Western Pack. He's traditional, doesn't trust humans, thinks I've gone soft. River's thumb traced absent circles on my leg. Davina from the Eastern Territory is sharp, political, always calculating advantages. She'll be polite but watch everything you do. He paused. And then there's Ronan from the South. He lost his mate last year. He's unpredictable. Grief makes people dangerous. I understood that last part too well. Anyone friendly? Miranda from the Coastal Pack. She's young for an alpha. Took over when her father stepped down. Progressive, believes in human werewolf cooperation. He smiled slightly. She'll like you. The estate came into view. Massive stone walls, towers that scraped the sky, windows that gleamed like watchful eyes. My stomach clenched with anxiety, but I breathed through it. I'd survived arrows. I could survive politics. We were greeted by estate staff. Neutral wolves who maintained the gathering grounds year-round. They led us to our quarters, a suite of rooms that was elegant but impersonal. River checked the locks on the doors, the windows, moving with a warrior's instinct even in supposedly safe territory. Stay close to me during the formal sessions, he said, adjusting his jacket. The Alpha King was back, commanding presence, shoulders squared, every inch the leader. But when he looked at me, his eyes softened. And if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately. I can handle uncomfortable, I assured him. I know you can, but you don't have to anymore. The first formal gathering was a dinner. All the regional alphas seated at a massive table in a hall that echoed with history. I wore a simple blue dress that Isla had insisted I pack, My blonde hair pulled back in a way that felt both elegant and practical. I could feel eyes on me from the moment we entered. River pulled out my chair himself, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed. I sat between him and Miranda, who gave me a warm smile. "So you're the legendary Serafina," Miranda said. She was maybe 30, with auburn hair and green eyes that sparkled with intelligence. 4 arrows and didn't let go. That's impressive even for a werewolf. I just did what needed doing, I said quietly. Modesty too. River, you didn't mention she was modest. Across the table, Connor, a broad man with iron gray hair and a permanent scowl, made a dismissive sound. Impressive or foolish, getting yourself nearly killed isn't strategic. Neither is letting a child die when you have the power to prevent it, I replied evenly, meeting his gaze. The table went quiet. River's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. Support, not restraint. Connor's eyes narrowed. Bold words from someone so breakable. Being breakable doesn't mean being broken, I said. And I'm still here, aren't I? Miranda laughed. A genuine, delighted sound. I like her. River, if you ever tire of her, send her my way. Not a chance, River said. And the possessive edge in his voice sent heat through my chest. The dinner continued with careful political conversations, territory boundaries, resource sharing, disputes over hunting grounds. I listened more than I spoke, learning the dynamics. Davina was exactly as River described. Calculating, watching everyone with sharp, dark eyes. Ronan barely touched his food, his expression haunted in a way I recognized. The other alphas were polite but distant, clearly reserving judgment. After dinner, there was a reception in the main hall. Wolves mingled, alliances were whispered, and I felt distinctly out of place among creatures who could tear me apart without effort. "You're doing beautifully," River murmured, bringing me a glass of wine. Connor's already been asked 3 times why he was so rude to the human who saved the prince. "You've got more allies here than you realize." Before I could respond, Ronan approached. Up close, I could see the grief etched into every line of his face. He was younger than River, maybe 35, with dark blonde hair and eyes the color of amber. "May I speak with you?" he asked, his voice rough. "Alone?" River tensed beside me, but I touched his arm gently. "It's okay." We moved to a quieter corner. Ronan stared at his drink for a long moment before speaking. "They told me what you did," he said finally. "Taking those arrows. Protecting a child who wasn't yours." He looked up, and his eyes were swimming. "My mate died protecting our daughter from rogues. She took a blade meant for our girl, and she didn't survive." My heart clenched. "I'm so sorry. Everyone tells me she was brave, that she died a warrior, but all I feel is rage that she had to die at all." His hands shook around his glass. "Then I hear about you, this fragile human who did the same thing and lived. And I don't know if I'm angry or grateful or just lost." I understood then. He wasn't here to threaten me. He was here because I represented something he'd lost, proof that sometimes the shield survives. "Your mate was brave," I said softly, "and so is your daughter for living with that loss. But you don't have to choose between grief and gratitude. You can hold both." He stared at me for a long moment, then, slowly, he nodded. "River's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him. Don't let Connor and his ilk poison that. They fear change. Fear anything that challenges their view of how things should be." He drained his glass. "But change is already here. You're proof of that." He walked away, leaving me processing. River appeared at my elbow immediately. "What did he say?" "Nothing threatening. Just grief. Recognizing grief." River pulled me close, his arm around my waist. "You have the strangest gift for reaching people where they hurt most. My mother used to say pain calls to pain. We recognize our own." The reception wound down eventually. Back in our suite, River helped me with the zipper of my dress, his fingers gentle against my spine. The intimacy of the moment made my breath catch. "You were incredible tonight," he said, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. "Connor looked like he'd swallowed glass when Miranda started praising you." I turned to face him, my dress slipping slightly. His eyes darkened, but he kept his hands respectful, waiting. "River," I whispered, "I need you to know. I'm not fragile. Not in the ways that matter. I know." His hand cupped my face. "But you're precious. and I've lost precious things before. So forgive me if I'm careful." I kissed him then, deeper than the gentle touch we'd shared on the porch. His control slipped just enough that I felt the hunger beneath, the loneliness, the desperate need to connect. But he pulled back before we went too far, resting his forehead against mine. "Not here," he said roughly. "Not in this place. When I have you completely, it'll be somewhere safe, somewhere ours." The promise in those words made me shiver. The next morning brought the formal council session. All the alphas gathered in a great hall with their advisors and honored pack members. I sat beside River as pack guardian, very aware of the scrutiny. Connor wasted no time. "I'd like to address the elephant in the room," he announced. "King River has brought a human to our gathering, a human he's clearly involved with romantically. This sets a dangerous precedent." "How is it dangerous?" Miranda countered. "She's proven herself more loyal than wolves born into packs." "She's a weakness," Connor insisted. "A target. Anyone wanting to hurt River now knows exactly where to strike." River's hand tightened on the arm of his chair, but before he could respond, I stood. The room went silent. "May I speak?" I asked, voice steady despite my hammering heart. River nodded, pride and concern warring in his expression. I turned to face Connor directly. "You're right. I am human. I am breakable. I am a potential target." I paused, letting that sink in. "But I'm also the woman who took 4 arrows without letting go of a child. I'm the one who chose pain over abandoning someone helpless. And if you think that makes me weak, then you've forgotten what strength actually means." I scanned the room, meeting eyes. Strength isn't just muscle and fangs. It's choosing to protect even when protection costs everything. It's standing up when kneeling would be easier. It's loving when loss has taught you how much love hurts. My voice strengthened. I may be a target, but I'm also a shield, and I'll keep being a shield for those I love, whether that makes me a weakness or not. Silence. Then Davina, of all people, began to clap slowly. Others joined. First Miranda, then Ronan, then wolves I didn't even know. Even some of Connor's own advisors. Connor's face darkened, but he sat back down. River's hand found mine, squeezing so hard it almost hurt. When I looked at him, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. The session continued, but the tone had shifted. I'd spoken my truth, and in doing so, I'd claimed my place. Not as River's weakness, but as my own person. Someone who'd earned respect through action rather than birth. That night, there was an attack. We were sleeping when the alarm sounded. A piercing wail that sent River bolting upright. He was shifting before I'd even processed what was happening, his wolf form massive and black in the darkness. "Stay here," he commanded, his voice partly wolf. "Lock the door behind me." But I'd learned something about myself in that clearing weeks ago. I didn't hide when people I cared about were in danger. I grabbed the silver dagger River had insisted I carry and followed him into the hallway. The estate was chaos. Rogues, feral wolves with no pack loyalty, had breached the perimeter. They were after the alphas, trying to create a power vacuum by eliminating leaders in one strike. I saw Miranda fighting 3 at once, her wolf form smaller, but lightning fast. Saw Ronan take down a rogue with brutal efficiency, his grief channeled into rage. Saw River coordinating defenses while simultaneously protecting the weaker pack members, and then I saw the child, a young wolf, maybe 10 years old, someone's daughter brought to the gathering, cornered by 2 rogues. She was crying, frozen with fear, and no one was close enough. My body moved before my mind caught up. I ran, screaming to draw their attention. It worked. One rogue turned toward me, snarling. I didn't have arrows this time, but I had a blade, and absolute determination. The rogue lunged. I dodged, barely, and slashed with the dagger. Silver bit into fur and flesh. The creature howled, more surprised than hurt. The second rogue charged the child. I threw myself between them, the dagger raised. The impact sent me sprawling, but I'd given the girl time to run. She scrambled away, screaming for help. The rogue above me drew back for a killing blow. Then River was there, a black storm of fury and fangs. He tore the rogue away from me, the fight ending in seconds. The other rogue fled. As the chaos subsided and warriors secured the perimeter, River shifted back to human form and dropped to his knees beside me. "Are you hurt?" His hands ran over me, checking for injuries. "I'm fine," The girl is safe. Because of you. He pulled me against his chest, his heart hammering beneath my ear. God, Serafina. When I saw you throw yourself in front of her. I know, I whispered, I know. But I can't be anyone other than who I am. He kissed the top of my head, his hands trembling. I know. And I love you for it. I love you. The words hung in the air between us, raw, unexpected, undeniable. I pulled back to look at him. Say that again. I love you, he repeated, his voice breaking. I've been falling since the moment you asked about my son before yourself, and tonight, watching you be brave again, I can't pretend anymore. I love you too, I said, and felt the truth of it settle into my bones. I think I have for weeks. Around us, the estate was settling, casualties being treated, rogues being contained, but in that moment, there was only us. Only this impossible, beautiful truth, that sometimes the strongest bonds are forged in fire, and the deepest love grows from the soil of sacrifice. The attack changed everything. By dawn, the truth had emerged. The rogues hadn't been random. They'd been hired by a faction within Connor's own pack. Wolves who believed humans contaminated werewolf society and wanted to make a statement by killing me in front of all the regional alphas. The child I'd protected was Connor's granddaughter. Connor himself appeared at our suite just after sunrise, looking like he'd aged a decade overnight. River stood between us initially, protective, but I touched his arm and he reluctantly stepped aside. I owe you my granddaughter's life, Connor said, his voice stripped of its usual arrogance. And I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you, about what strength looks like, about what it means to be pack. He paused, his throat working. The wolves who hired those rogues have been exiled. They don't represent me or my pack. Not anymore. I could have been petty, could have thrown his earlier words back at him. Instead, I thought of my mother, of choosing compassion over fear. Your granddaughter is brave, I said. She'll remember that someone protected her. Make sure she grows up knowing that protection isn't weakness. It's everything. His eyes glistened. He nodded once, deeply, then left. River pulled me close, burying his face in my hair. You're going to save the world with that heart of yours. I just want to save the people in front of me. The gathering concluded that afternoon with a historic vote. The regional alphas unanimously declared that humans who prove themselves through action, not birth, could hold honored positions within packs. They called it the Serafina Accord, which made me simultaneously proud and mortified. Miranda hugged me fiercely before she left. You've changed things. Really changed them. Thank you. Ronan clasped my hand, his grip strong. My daughter asked if she could meet you sometime. She wants to talk to someone who understands losing someone and still finding reasons to be brave. Anytime, I promised. Truly. Even Davina, calculating Davina, gave me a nod of respect. You're either very clever or very genuine. I haven't decided which. Either way, you've earned your place. The drive home felt different. River's hand stayed intertwined with mine the entire time, our fingers locked together like we were afraid of letting go. We talked about everything. His hopes for Finn, my dreams of maybe teaching children someday, how we'd navigate a relationship that was unprecedented in werewolf society. I want to court you properly, River said as we neared pack territory. Not just fall into this because of circumstances. You deserve romance, Serafina, dates and flowers and all the things I haven't given anyone in years. I'd like that, I said softly. Though you should know, you already gave me flowers. The wildflowers in my room, remember? Those don't count. I'm going to fill our home with them until you're sick of the sight. Our home, I repeated, testing the words. They felt right. When we pulled up to the residence, Finn was waiting on the porch with Isla. The moment he saw us, he broke free and ran, all rules about walking forgotten. River barely had the car door open before his son launched himself at us. You came back, Finn sobbed, clutching both of us. You promised, and you came back. Always, I murmured, holding him close. I'll always come back to you. Inside, Isla had prepared dinner. We ate together. River, Finn, me, like a family. A real family. Finn chattered about everything he'd done while we were gone, how Isla had let him help bake cookies, how he'd been brave even when he was scared. I was brave like you, he told me seriously. Like you taught me. You were, I agreed. I'm so proud of you. After Finn was tucked into bed, a process that involved 3 stories, 2 glasses of water, and a solemn promise that I'd be there in the morning, River and I finally had time alone. We sat on the back porch again, the place that was becoming ours. The spring night was warm, full of cricket song and the scent of blooming jasmine. I meant what I said, River murmured, his arm around me. I love you, and I want to build a life with you, whatever that looks like. I want that too. I turned to face him. But I need you to understand something. I'm still going to run toward danger when someone needs help. I can't change that part of myself. I know. He cupped my face gently, and I'm not going to ask you to. But I am going to stand beside you when you do. We'll be brave together. Together, I agreed. He kissed me then, slow and deep and full of promise. His hands tangled in my blonde hair, and I felt the tremor in his touch, the barely leashed desire mixed with reverence. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. Come to bed with me, he whispered against my lips. Not here. In our home. Let me show you how precious you are to me. I nodded, unable to form words. That night, River made love to me with a tenderness that broke me apart and put me back together. He worshipped every scar the arrows had left, kissing each one, telling me they were badges of honor. He was gentle and fierce by turns, showing me through touch what words couldn't convey. That I was cherished, desired, loved beyond measure. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, our heartbeats synchronizing, I felt a peace I'd never known. Like I'd been searching my whole life for this moment, this person, this home. Marry me, River said into the darkness. I went still. What? Marry me, he repeated, propping himself up to look at me. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out, but I've spent 5 years being half alive. And you've made me whole again. I don't want to waste another moment not being yours completely. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Yes. Yes, of course, yes. He kissed me again, tasting the salt of my tears, and I felt him smile against my mouth. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. The pack celebrated our engagement with genuine joy. Even the wolves who'd once dismissed me now welcomed me warmly. Isla cried and hugged me so hard my ribs ached. Garrett insisted on personally training me in self-defense, declaring that the pack guardian needed to be able to fight, not just take hits. Finn was ecstatic. He told anyone who'd listen that Serafina was going to be his new mama, his face glowing with happiness that made my heart swell. We married on a perfect summer evening, in the meadow where the wildflowers grew. It was small, just pack members and the few allies we'd made at the gathering. Miranda came, and Ronan with his daughter. Even Davina sent a gift and her regards. I wore a simple white dress, flowers woven into my blonde hair. River wore formal attire but couldn't stop smiling. The Alpha King transformed into a man drunk on joy. Finn carried the rings, so serious and proud of his responsibility. When River slipped the band onto my finger, his hand shook. I promised to protect you, he said, his vows raw and honest. To honor your courage, to stand beside you in danger, and to love you every day for the rest of my life. I promise to be your shield when you need one, I replied, my voice steady despite my tears. To love your son as my own, to choose compassion over fear, and to remind you every day that you're not alone anymore. When we kissed, the pack howled in celebration, a sound that echoed through the mountains, joyful and wild and free. The reception lasted until dawn. We danced under the stars, ate food prepared by pack members who'd poured love into every dish, and accepted congratulations from people who'd become family. At one point, I found myself talking with Ronan's daughter, a quiet girl of 8, named Emma, who held my hand like I was something magical. My mama was brave like you, she said. Daddy says you took arrows and didn't let go. Your mama was braver, I told her gently. She gave everything. I just got lucky. But you lived, Emma said, her young face serious. And that means you can teach other people how to be brave too. Will you teach me? My throat tightened. Yes, sweetheart. I will. Ronan approached, overhearing. Thank you, he said quietly, for giving her hope that bravery doesn't always end in loss. Sometimes it ends in love, I said, watching River spin Finn around the dance floor. both of them laughing. As the sun rose, River and I slipped away to the residence, now truly our home. Finn was staying with Isla for the night, giving us privacy. River carried me over the threshold despite my protests, both of us giggling like children. "Welcome home, Mrs. King," he murmured against my ear. "I've been home since the day you looked at me like I mattered," I replied. That night, our wedding night, was different from the first time. Less desperate, more certain. We took our time, learning each other's bodies with patient devotion. River traced every inch of me like I was a map he was committing to memory, and I gave myself to him completely, holding nothing back. In the darkness, wrapped in his arms, I thought of my mother, of her lessons about compassion and courage. I hoped wherever she was, she could see this, see that her daughter had found not just survival, but joy. Not just tolerance, but love. "What are you thinking?" River asked, his fingers drawing patterns on my shoulder. "That my mother would have loved you, and Finn. I wish I could have met her. She's in me," I said. "In every choice I make, in every moment I choose love over fear. So in a way you do know her." He kissed my forehead. "Then I'm grateful to her, for raising someone so extraordinary." The months that followed brought their own challenges. Not every pack accepted the changes. There were still wolves who believed in traditional hierarchies, who saw humans as lesser. But slowly, steadily, things shifted. Other packs began allowing humans to earn positions of honor. Marriages between species, once unheard of, became possible. We became symbols, River and I. The Alpha King who'd learned to love again, and the human who'd proven that strength came in many forms. Finn thrived. He grew confident, his nightmares fading to nothing. He called me Mama without hesitation, and every time he did, my heart swelled. We had family dinners every night, a sacred time where River set aside his duties and we were just us. Just a family. I did start teaching, not in a formal school, but holding sessions for pack children, both wolf and human. I taught them reading and writing, but also my mother's lessons. About compassion, about choosing to protect rather than harm, about finding strength in gentleness. River would sometimes sit in the back of my classroom, watching me with an expression of pure adoration that made the children giggle and me blush. One evening, nearly a year after our wedding, we sat on our porch as the sun set. Finn was inside, drawing pictures of his new baby sister. I was 6 months pregnant, carrying a daughter we'd already named Helena after River's first mate. It had been my idea, and River had cried when I suggested it. "Do you ever regret it?" River asked, his hand resting on my swollen belly. "Taking those arrows? Everything that came after?" I thought about the pain, the fear, the moments when I'd wondered if I'd survive. Then I thought about this, the warmth of River's hand, the sound of Finn's laughter from inside, the life growing within me, the community that had embraced me. "Not for a single second," I said. "Those arrows led me here, to you, to our family, to a life I never dreamed possible." "You saved more than Finn that night," River said softly. "You saved me too. We saved each other." As darkness fell and the stars emerged, River pulled me close. Inside, Finn called for us to come see his drawing. Our daughter kicked against my ribs, strong and healthy, and I thought about the girl I'd been. Invisible, tolerated, always on the outside looking in. She would never have believed this could be her life. But here I was, Seraphina King, pack guardian, wife, mother, teacher. No longer invisible, no longer just surviving. I was loved. I was home. I was whole. And when I closed my eyes and thought of my mother, I could almost hear her voice. "You chose compassion over fear, my darling. And look what it brought you. Look at the life you've built." The arrows had left scars. 4 silver marks I'd carry forever, but they were beautiful scars now. Reminders that sometimes getting hurt in service of love is the most powerful thing a person can do. That night, I fell asleep in my husband's arms, our son safe in the next room, our daughter growing strong inside me, and I knew with absolute certainty I would take those arrows again, 1,000 times over. Because love, real, fierce, transformative love, was always worth the pain, and this life, this beautiful, impossible life, was worth everything.